the prior lawsuit that we went through cost us about $200,000. And that one involved an employee who stole my identity, forged a letter to the Superior Court in an attempt to remove someone's parental rights, and then they impersonated me on the telephone. And they colluded with another employee of mine to do that. And even though I had all of the evidence, it cost me $200,000, and the mediators forced me to pay her $5,000 to go away. I was told by the mediator, this is the cost of doing business in California. And I elevated this to all of my representatives because I was in the service. I know you're supposed to use your chain of command. You go in order, and that's what I did. I wrote letters to everyone, all the way up to Michelle Obama. And actually did send the FBI out to meet with me, probably because they thought I was crazy. But they basically told me that there's not enough money involved for us to do anything about this, and you're just going to have to pay.
Welcome to the California Labor Law Odyssey. We're navigating over 1,100 pages of labor laws, trying to comply. Makes this quite a journey. I'm your host, Tom Manzo, and today we have a very special guest, Renea Linder from Linder Psychiatric Group. Welcome to the show, Renea.
Thank you so much for having me, Tom. We appreciate work on this issue very much.
Yeah. So, Renea, tell us about your company, what you do, how long you've been in business.
Well, as you said, I'm Renea Linder. I'm an LCSW, that's licensed clinical social worker, and I've been practicing in the mental field for 30 years. My husband is Dr. David Linder. He's a child, adolescent, adult, and forensic psychiatrist. And we met on a psychiatric ward 28 years ago. And
wow,
we've been
I'm just thinking out there, it's not too many people can say, well, we met each other on a psychiatric ward. Although there's probably some married couples that are thinking that now with all the quarantines and things like that. So,
well, I can tell you, Tom, it stops conversations at cocktail parties. Yeah. When people don't know us and they don't know what we do. And, it's one of the first questions they ask you is, how did you meet? And when we say on a psych ward, a lot of people, they break eye contact and go to the restroom and never return. But some people become more curious and ask a lot of questions. So I've been very blessed to work with my husband. We have a small family-run business, and we've been in business since 1997. So I think that's 23 years. And we started out just the two of us in a little two-room office, and I did the billing and I did everything. And then I started seeing patients after we hired our first employee. So we built all the way up to 3 offices and almost 50 employees. We have about 15 healthcare providers that work for us currently. We have several nurse practitioners. We have a couple of psychologists, and we have a lot of licensed marriage and family therapists that work for us, and about 10 front office and back office employees.
I think there's a lot of people here that probably are going to want your name and number.
Yeah, we do it all. Actually, my husband and I specialize in bipolar disorder, but the clinics, we do everything. We do marriage, family, child. We see children, adolescents, adults, and we love what we do. We're just so blessed because every day we go to work, we love it, except for the attorneys.
Yeah, they definitely can make things difficult. So a lot of times, doing what you're doing, there has to be calls from patients and things like that at all hours of the day and night. And how do you handle that? How is that processed?
Well, you're right, Tom. My husband and I are both on call 24/7. And we do deal with patient emergencies every day. We have suicidal children. We work with, children, adolescents, and adults that are suicidal. We have patients just released from the hospital. In 23 years of being in business, I don't think we've ever really had a vacation. We're on call on our vacations. I have to do payroll on vacation. I'm not complaining. I'm grateful to be able to do what I do. I'm a hard worker. I don't mind working 12 hours a day. But when you throw the attorneys and these lawsuits in on top of that, it's pretty unbearable, and it's very unfair, especially because these lawsuits are unsubstantiated lawsuits. They don't have to prove anything to file a suit against you. And I spend hours and hours and hours every night getting documents together for attorneys, for someone who claims they didn't get a lunch break when they did. And I have 5 other employees that will attest to the fact that they did, but I'm still going to spend $200,000 to prove I didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah. And that's money and time that could be spent, that could be helping patients. And I think
children.
It's, truthfully, we definitely in society, we need folks like you. We need people that are dedicated to helping, especially the children, So you deal with a lot of children then?
We do, because my husband's a child psychiatrist. About 50% of our caseload are children. And there's, just to give you some idea, in our field, the demand is so high, there's a 50,000 shortage of child psychiatrists in the United States. And when we first opened, this was very difficult for me, because mothers would call me crying and they would say, my kid tried to hang themselves on the playground, and can I get him in today? Can I get him in to see your husband today? And I would have to tell them no. And it would really upset me, because, that's a hard thing to do. It's hard to tell mom, no, I can't get your kid in today. And I would tell them, I can put you on the cancellation list. If somebody cancels, I will call you first thing. And they would call me every day. Can I get my kid in? We're booked out for months. We're extremely busy.
I mean, that's something that I never knew, that there's a shortage of folks like yourself. It's almost, it's sad. You are so needed. And then to be plagued, like in the opening statement, I talk about 1,100 pages. California's Labor Law Digest is 1,100 pages. In most companies that have a lot more employees and a sophisticated human resource staff, and even on-staff legal, get into trouble with a lot of these complex laws. They don't know what to do. I feel that a business that size is at a major disadvantage of trying to comply with a lot of these complex laws. I mean, just very, very difficult.
It is certainly a challenge. And I subscribe to SHRM, and we're doing our own payroll in-house. We have been almost the whole time. And we try very hard to comply with the law. I'm a United States Navy veteran.
Wow. Thank you for your service.
Thank you. I don't say it for that, really. And I also spent 2 years with the Marines. You should
say it. You should be proud. I think more people that, have been in the military should be proud of what they've done for their country.
Well, the reason I bring it up, Tom, is I'm a rule-abiding person. Once you go through boot camp and you do 2 years of combat training with the Marines as a hospital corpsman, you follow the rules. You are a by-the-book kind of person. It's not that we would ever try to break rules or do anything wrong intentionally. We've been battered with lawsuits for, after we opened the 3rd office, we started to get larger. That's when we started to have lawsuits and problems. We got close to 50 employees, and we just started getting battered by lawsuits.
Walk the viewers through what you're doing.
So we were served in September, and it's always the worst employees that sue you. We had a couple of people at the front desk who never showed up for work, were always in trouble, couldn't balance the deposit. So there were quite a few difficulties with these employees, and eventually they were let go. And then we were hit with PAGA suit, and so a PAGA suit requires me to go back 4 years, and actually it's 5 years. They're asking for 5 years of data. Every single employee that's worked for us for 5 years, every timesheet, every email, every incident report, every write-up. I don't think that the general public probably realizes the amount of time that a business owner has to invest in trying to prove that they're innocent.
Yeah, well, what have you been accused of? What did you do wrong?
So we did wrong, and we did do something wrong. We had a couple of employees. In the last 5 years, we underpaid overtime for 13 hours. 13 hours. So we spent $20,000 to date on just attorney's fees. We corrected the matter as soon as we were made aware of it. And there is an email from me to my payroll person telling her, you do have to pay overtime if it's over 8 hours a day. So she wrote me back and she said, no, you don't, because they didn't work 40 hours a week. So I wrote her back again, and I have this in writing. I wrote her back again and I said, yes, you do. You have to pay overtime for anything over 8 hours a day. So I have that email in writing, but still I'm going to be tortured beyond belief over this. And
what's the total damage? I mean, what would you have, the 13 hours, what would that cost us to say, hey, employee, here's this 13 hours I owe you. What's the dollar amount on that?
It was under $200.
Under $200. Again, going back to the smaller companies, and I think one thing legislators might not understand, one thing labor, large unionized organizations don't understand. They think the payroll companies are going to take care of their clients. They're going to be the ones that advise you and say, hey, this is how it should be done, and this is how it should be done. And it does not work that way. There's very few that do provide that additional service, because a lot of times they don't understand a lot of the rules and regulations themselves. They just don't. And a payroll company, if they get your name wrong on a paycheck stub, they're not going to be liable. You're going to be liable.
Right.
They forget to calculate. So last September, you had to produce and get together a lot of evidence, turn it over to your attorney. Your attorney has that. And what's your attorney advising you? What is he saying? Hey, this could cost you X amount of dollars. Where are you at with that?
Well, I've asked him for a number. He hasn't given it to me, but the prior lawsuit that we went through cost us about $200,000. And that one involved an employee who stole my identity, forged a letter to the Superior Court in an attempt to remove someone's parental rights, and then they impersonated me on the telephone. And they colluded with another employee of mine to do that. And even though I had all of the evidence, it cost me $200,000, and the mediators forced me to pay her $5,000 to go away. I was told by the mediator, this is the cost of doing business in California. And I elevated this to all of my representatives because I was in the service. I know you're supposed to use your chain of command. You go in order, and that's what I did. I wrote letters to everyone, all the way up to Michelle Obama. And actually did send the FBI out to meet with me, probably because they thought I was crazy. But they basically told me that there's not enough money involved for us to do anything about this, and you're just going to have to pay.
How about some of your state representation? Did you get any responses from anybody?
I've contacted Assemblyman Kiley several times, and they just basically tell me there's nothing they can do for us. Well, I've contacted everybody. I have letters to absolutely everybody. I contacted the state bar. I sent them proof of the forged letter to the Superior Court. I sent them a statement from the other employee that was involved. They were trying to remove her boyfriend's grandfather's parental rights. No one would help me.
So you just got done putting this lawsuit to bed. It cost you a couple $100,000, and then you get this PAGA notice, and you know, obviously it could include maybe up to 50 of your employees, and it's over the overtime. Is there anything else that's part of this complaint, part of this lawsuit?
They're saying they didn't get their lunches and their breaks, which is absolutely not true. And we subpoenaed their phone record to prove that they got their lunches and their breaks. And I have written statements from 5 other employees showing that they were never at the front desk. They were always on break. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And they did not produce their phone records. And then we had to pay another $2,000 to file what's called a motion to compel them to produce their phone records, because that will prove that they got their breaks. In fact, they were at the local bar on their break, I was told by an employee. And their credit card receipts will certainly show that they were not sitting in my office, that they were next door at the yard house having lunch. And
well, that's, you know, just, I mean, they have to go through all that. Just they have to prove all of these different things. And it's almost like a boilerplate, you know, with these particular lawsuits, you know, they list everything because they're hoping that you've done other things wrong so they can make this lawsuit more expensive. You know, the rounding up, rounding down, missed lunch, missed breaks, you know, you name it, anything and everything under the sun. And a lot of this is done so they hike up a big number, and then they use that big number as a threat in mediation. They take you into mediation and they say, okay, you know, Renee, we'll settle for $800,000. What do you think? Until they keep working it until they realize how much money they can extract from you.
Right. I think we're being sued for $5 million, which if we sold everything we own, they'd still be out of luck, because we are a small business and we're mental health, so we don't make the kind of money that cardiologists make or other doctors. You know, we're very poorly paid for the work that we do. So it's just ludicrous. And my husband and I are at the point where we closed an office because of it. We decided to go smaller. And I took solace in the fact that there's no way I could ever have to go through that again in my life. And then in September, we got hit again. And I do want to say too, Tom, that I ran background checks on the attorneys that are suing me. They are despicable. Every attorney that's ever sued me has bankruptcies, liens, judgments. The guy suing me right now, he must have like 12 speeding tickets. I didn't think you could even get 12 speeding tickets. I didn't think that was legal. And I don't understand how someone could be allowed to practice law when they don't follow the law. I don't have so much as a speeding ticket.
You know, there's over 7,000 of these lawsuits that happen yearly. And, you know, last week alone, you know, 36 PAGA notices a day went out. 36 PAGA notices a day. That gets you up to the 10,000 range a year. But I really want to understand mentally, when you got that PAGA notice, you know, where are you mentally? Where are you mentally even today? How do you feel as a business owner, as an entrepreneur? You know, how do you feel about your employees? I mean, tell us, take us where your mind is right now.
Well, thank you for that question, Tom. You know, I am a very strong person mentally. I'm very strong. I'm very resilient. I help people with their problems all day long, so I have very good coping skills. But It is absolutely terrifying to get a bill every Friday from your attorney for $10,000. In the last set of lawsuits, I took $50,000 out of my retirement account. I took a loan to pay people to go away.
And what do you like at night? You're talking with your husband and you're talking about the business, and you know, maybe 10 years ago the conversation was, God, you know, we're helping so many people, we're trying to grow this thing, you know, we want to expand, we want to do this. What's that, you know, what's that conversation you have with him tonight? What do you talk about when it comes to your business?
That conversation is, we love what we do. We love helping people. Our patients love us. We love them, but we can't take the abuse anymore. It's financial abuse. It's emotional abuse. It's, in my opinion, physical abuse. And most people might be saying, "What are you talking about?" Well, I work a minimum of 12 hours a day. I don't get lunch. I don't get breaks. And then I come home and I work for attorneys for 3 or 4 more hours. I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
My husband's exhausted. And our conversations now are, okay, we have to get out. We can't survive this. We can't keep doing this. We can't be under attack constantly. And, you know, my husband, he works 12 hours a day seeing patients. He's really in demand. He's needed. He's on call 24/7. And so, you know, I deal with 100% of the legal issues, the depositions, the getting the documents together, the making sure they're right. And I'm also seeing patients 20 hours a week.
Wow.
So it's not tolerable. It's not fair. You're right, we're guilty until proven guilty. The state tells us it's the cost of doing business in California. Really? I had a mediator tell me, "I don't care about the facts of your case. I'm just here to settle it."
Yeah.
And the same mediator told me, "Well, she only stole a little." I almost fell out of my chair, Tom.
Yeah.
I was like, "What do you mean she only stole a little? I have proof she was stealing, and you're going to tell me I have to pay her to go away?" There's no justice in our justice system. And as a former veteran and a business owner, I find that highly disturbing. I find it highly disturbing the amount of money that the plaintiffs' attorneys are contributing to our campaigns, to our representatives. I guess if Kamala Harris gets $2 million from the plaintiffs' attorneys, why would she listen to poor little old me who only pays, you know, a couple $100,000 in taxes every year?
Right. Well, I do have something. I know we're doing all of this virtually now. I would have loved to have you physically on our show, but I do have something, and I'm going to send one to your husband too. And I tell everybody this. I say, listen, you know, business owners like you should not be getting lawsuits handed to them. They should get a medal pinned on them. So California Business and Industrial Alliance has a medal, and I'm going to send that out. So I'm going to mail you our medal because we're proud of what you do, and we're grateful for what you do. And you know, thank God we have people like you in the state, in this country. Thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for your bravery in doing so. A lot of business owners, a lot of companies are afraid to speak up because they don't want to look like they're anti-employee. And that's what makes all of this even worse, is because most of the folks are not anti-employee. Most of them want to keep their employees. They want to, you know, that's the one area that's difficult to manage. And when you have good employees, you want to keep them.
Thank you for having me, Tom, and thank you so much for the work that you're doing.
Okay.
Good job.
Thank you for your time, and enjoy the rest of your day. Linder's Psychiatric Group has been sued 3 times in 5 years. Cost them $200,000 to defend against false accusations, and they're still paying. They've been forced to use their retirement, reduce their business from 3 offices to only 1, lay off employees, and turn away clients. They are currently being sued for $5 million because of a $200 accounting mistake. Do you think that's fair or reasonable? Labor disputes should be handled by the public servants of the California State Labor Board, not by private attorneys who have no concept of fairness. Who will restore justice in California? Will you?